Hello, welcome to From the Rookery End. My name is John, with me is Mike.
There goes my hero, watch him as he goes. All right.
Berghuis, yeah. I'll talk about that later. And Jason.
Yo.
And as always, these podcasts are our take on life as a Watford fan. It's the 1st of August. Watford have recently played QPR. One more pre-season game to go before the big kick-off at Southampton. We're going to talk about, unfortunately, some exits. Two very important ones. Well, one very important one and one we'll talk about. We'll also look back at the QPR game. But we're still a way away from the season. We're not worried about things or stressing about things, are we, Mike?
No, definitely not. There's 2 weeks to go. I think we're all aware that there's work being done in the transfer market. The Pozzos are very rarely static in that arena, so I think there'll be work being undertaken to bring players in. 2 weeks is a long time in terms of getting up to speed in terms of fitness, working on tactics, working on formation, working on the players getting to know each other. There's a couple who have, it's been a staggered return for some of them, with them coming back from the Euros, and then some of the new signings joining up halfway through the Austria trip. Hopefully we'll start to see some of the benefits of the guys being together for an extended period of time. But I think from now on is probably where the hard footballing work is going to start up at UCL, and absolutely no doubt that we'll be ready to go on August the 13th, is it?
Jason, QPR on Saturday. Many people have said it. Oh, sorry. So that's my mobile phone going off.
Is that the Undertaker music, John?
Yeah.
That'll be Levy then, right?
Yeah, it is. Hang on. Hi, Dave.
Hey, John. How you doing?
Yeah. We're just recording a podcast at the moment.
Oh, you're recording a podcast. That's great. I wanted to talk to you about Almen Abdi. I can't believe it. I cannot believe what for the selling him. Yeah, it's just completely ruined my summer. The thing I don't understand is he was our best player in the Championship. He was definitely our best midfielder in the Championship. And we had a system where he was perfect in a 3-5-2. He had some freedom. He had some defensive players behind him. Then last season we play him wide in a 4-4-2, so he can't do his thing. This season we're told we're going to play 3-5-2 again, perfectly suiting his game, and we sell him. Only Watford would do that. It's completely bonkers that we're selling a player perfectly suited to the new system, hasn't been given a chance, and yeah, really, really upsetting.
Is he gone? Is that it?
No, I've just turned him down. We'll see if he's still there a bit later on, because he can rant for a while. Can David Levy? He'll still be there. That formation that David hoped that Abdi would be part of, you saw it in action on Saturday. We talked about it in the last podcast. Are you still thinking it's a goer?
Yeah. Let's give it a chance. Yeah. Let's not write it off too quickly. In their defence, you would say that QPR are a week ahead of us. That probably would have been their starting 11 that they started with on Saturday. We made a lot of substitutions throughout the game, and I think Walter was probably still trying a few things out there in terms of players in positions. On the flip side, if we see the same sort of performance next Saturday against Lorient, then I think I would start to get worried. There are a few things there that really disappointed me. First was Neom, just didn't look at the races at all. Got out-muscled, outplayed by a striker in Sebastian Polter, who I saw play last year and wasn't that impressed by him. So to be done by a Championship striker, not too impressive. I was a bit concerned with the way we defended the edge of our 18-yard box. We were playing with the back three, and you think with three at the back we'd be able to defend the central portion of the goal quite well, and it didn't seem to work out like that. There were a number of occasions where the QPR strikers were finding space on the corner of the D, so quite central to goal, and you'd think we'd be able to get that covered, whether that be by bringing the wing-backs in line with the back three or dropping a central midfielder or two into the channels to allow the wide players in the back three to defend a bit wider. I don't know, but that was a bit disconcerting. And also the fact that we are playing with three central midfielders, we didn't seem to be able to dominate that central midfield area as much as I would like, particularly against the Championship side. So there are a few things there that I think I'd like to see them work on. There were positives as well. In terms of the players, we've already talked about Holebas. I think he could be key for us this season. He seemed to be our main attacking threat on the left-hand side. What was quite surprising was that Amrabat came on and played at right wing back in the second half and looked equally as good. We looked quite a threat when he got on the ball. Again, going back to the disappointments, I was disappointed that, and we talked about it at the Stevens game in the last podcast, where what you want to be doing is moving the ball quickly to the wing backs when they find space, particularly in the second half when Zuniga came on, started off central midfield, but when he got moved to left wing back, he was finding loads of space quite a lot of the time, but just didn't get the ball across to him, and when they did, it was too slow.
I would say at that Stevenage game, the second half of the Stevenage game, that's actually what they did do. They were getting the ball around quickly, and that was like, the first half against Stevenage wasn't amazing, especially against a lower league team. But it sort of is there, isn't it, Mike? We know there's something there.
What's that, a low team? We're playing the French team. We're playing the French team this weekend, mate. I think there's two things that concern me really. One is a defensive situation. The whole 3-5-2 thing is very dependent on getting that right at the back. And I've said it last time. We were so good at the back to start with last year, and if we don't replicate that really early this year, we could get found out. The flip side is, if it works, it's going to be great fun. And I wasn't at QPR on Saturday, but the concerning thing for me is if those middle three, who you'd say is where we're pretty established, and we could probably name the three starters with 3 out of 4 at the moment, I guess, and you'd trust any of them. And to hear that they didn't look great on Saturday is a little bit concerning. And it's whether the link between those middle three and the sort of more defensive central midfield players, that understanding is going to be vital from a defensive point of view, but also getting the game going through the middle as well as using the wing back. So it sounds like there's a lot to work on, and I'm desperate for that defence to work, because I think with the start we've got, if it doesn't click into gear early and well, it could be a painful August. And the other thing is the sort of slight malaise that left over from last year in players like Alan Neom, who Jason mentioned there, who started the season like an absolute train. I thought he was great, and then got incrementally worse. I can't remember which game it was. Was it the Palace where he got a rinse in and didn't really recover? And it sounds like that's carried on into this sort of pre-season to a degree, and he looks a shell of the man that he once was. And what we must avoid, and what the job that Matsari and his team have got, is to turn around that post-Christmas form, and not just the form, but the confidence, I think, of these players who have proved they can do it, but didn't really for the second half. And yes, we can point at Kike and say he played players out of position, and yes, you can say that there's a bit of falling out perhaps, but there's only so long we can point the finger and look back. We're now at the start of a Premier League season. They need to buck their ideas up and start performing as well as they can, and it's up to Matsari to get them to do that. We'll get the negatives out of the way early. It just sounds a bit, not depressing, just a touch disappointing that they're not firing on all cylinders. All right, it was a hot day. QPR are going to be much more, as Jason said, much more up to game speed, and they don't want to risk injury. They're probably under strict instructions from a fitness point of view to expend X amount of energy and all that sort of stuff. So there is work to be done defensively, and just turning around that whole feeling of that playing squad. There hasn't been a massive influx of players. There's new players. I think Doucouré is one that's going to come in, and hopefully I think will give the others a bit of a boost. But there hasn't been like this influx of star names, if you like, that are going to give everyone a massive boost and a shake-up. The core is still very much the same as it was, and it's important that they shake it out of themselves and they really do start the season on the front foot.
It would have been a change, Jason, but would you think an Almen Abdi sort of character, who unfortunately is we've had a break-up with Almen, he's gone off to someone else. Dave felt bad about it in the phone call. Do you reckon, would he have fitted a bit more in that formation?
I think so, because I think we were missing a central attacking midfielder. That was blindingly obvious. I think what he wants to play with is 2 box-to-box midfielders and an attacking midfielder, sort of ahead of the triangle behind the front two. And it just looked like all the way through we just had box-to-box midfielders, and we need something to make the difference. If you're not going to get the ball to the wide players quickly, then you need someone to do something special there to unlock the opposition defence in the middle. So yes, an Almen Abdi type character. Not necessarily him, but yes, someone of his ilk.
Should we see if Dave is still there? Oh, let's see. Listen.
And I know I'm the merchant of doom and the man who moans on this podcast, but all my moans have really been about modern football is rubbish and the Premier League is overpriced and overhyped. So I can feel my blood pressure rising just as I even mention it. But the Premier League have done something about it, and £30 cap on away games is a really good start. This moan is about the Pozzos, and I think they've done brilliant things for Watford, but I just think they've made a bad decision, a wrong decision, and looking at the reaction on Twitter, I'm not alone. It's going to be really strange not seeing Almen in a Watford shirt. I also heard that Sheffield Wednesday are after Cassetti. Doyley, Jonathan Hogg and Manuel Almunia this season.
All right, that'll do. He'll still be there in a minute. Mike, do you think that thing about not trusting the Pozzos, these decisions they've made, was it a bad decision to get rid of Almen Abdi?
There's two things here. There's an emotional level and there's a sporting business decision that's been done. On an emotional level, it's obviously distressing to see Almen Abdi go. From our very personal point of view, he was the first of the Pozzo intake that we interviewed. Little did we know back then, whereas he didn't stammer through the interview, but he wasn't very confident, was he? And well, why would you be faced with us three hulking great figures of men? Little did we know what he turned into. But I think Almen Abdi, for those of you who were at Charlton that night in that first season, Fernando Forestieri got sent off in the first half. We thought, oh Christ, this is what we've ended up with, a bunch of preening prima donnas. But for the rest of that game, I think Joel Ekstrand came on and put in an incredible shift, and then obviously Almen Abdi won it, and we thought, hang on a minute, this could be something special here. So he'll always sort of he will sort of signified that sort of time where we did start believing in the Pozzos and did start believing that the players coming in were of a certain standard and were far better than we used to. But so I'm sorry to see him go. Absolutely, I am. But on the other hand, I was talking to my brother the other day about the reason he's been let go is that we haven't said we're not going to play you in that position. We're not going to give you game time in that position. And so Almen Abdi and the Watford hierarchy have agreed, OK, you'll go. I don't think Watford wanted him to go. I think we'd have liked to have held on to him if we can. But they said, look, if it comes down to us having to guarantee you'll play in that position, you're not going to get it. And that's good. Because what I want from this Watford squad now is to remove the excuse of playing players out of position. Occasionally it's going to happen. Occasionally the goalie will get sent off or you strike. Stuff happens, injuries. Everyone gets caught out by dodgy lasagna, whatever. But really, there shouldn't be people playing out of position. And if people can't do it, then we don't need them in the club. Don't sign them. Get rid of them. And it doesn't matter who they are. It goes back to the Gerrard Lampard debate. Which one's better? Play him. Don't try because we know it just doesn't work. So I'd rather Watford were decisive and the management were decisive, and if it means shipping out people who aren't going to be happy playing in different roles, so be it. We want people who are going to play in a position. Let's get players who are going to play in the position that we're going to use and keep hold of those, and let's not worry about the rest.
Yeah, well, seeing him score that goal for Sheffield Wednesday this week, it was like seeing an ex-girlfriend out in the town the following weekend with someone else. Oh, I wanted to weep. It's
funny though. It's like I always tell my girlfriend after we've enjoyed a bit of special time. I say, don't be sad it's over so soon. Be glad it happened, and I think that's how we should be with Almen.
I think again, what you got to look at, he scored that goal on Sunday, but he scored it for Sheffield Wednesday. So let's just remember that it's a Championship side that has come in for him. No other Premier League side has been looking at him as far as we're aware. So yes, he was great for us. And just to add to the Charlton thing, everyone remembers a free kick. What people that weren't there that night might not have known is the effort that he and the rest of the team were putting in. At the end, it looked like he was running through treacle. He was working so hard just to defend the lead that we had with 10 men. It was such an effort from him and the team that night.
It was pivotal. That's when it feels like this Watford that we know and are enjoying now was born. That's why that night will live long in the memory, and Almen Abdi was a key part of that.
The other sort of player that sort of questioned the decisions, let's say, of the Pozzos and the whole gang. We always say the Pozzos, but the whole gang involved. Was today Steven Berghuis went out on a season-long loan to Feyenoord, and Olary also went out on a season-long loan. Young players. I saw WD Sport questioning the success, let's say, of last summer's transfers, particularly those two. Is that the right thing to do? To think with a player like him, say, go away for a year and come back?
I would have liked. I think Olari's a difficult one. I haven't seen. Obviously, none of us have seen much of him, but I haven't seen much in him that suggests he's going to be a Premier League footballer anytime soon. You know, if you look at the way Troy Deeney leads the line, or even Igalo, a very different player, just how confident and comfortable he looks in the Premier League, and then you compare that to Obi Olari, absolute miles apart, absolutely poles apart. So not surprised to see him go out on loan. Not surprised to see Berghuis go out on loan. I think he was obviously agitating for a move. I don't think he was happy. He was never been confident in his role at Watford. Understandably so. I don't think that's through his own fault. Whether there's been a few hissy fits behind the scenes, who knows? It's always difficult to say. But he's never been 100% confident, I don't think. So I understand why he'd want to move away. I'm slightly disappointed that they've both gone. That he's gone to Holland, where I think the quality is less than he's going to be expected to put up with in the Premier League. So whether perhaps a year in the Championship, or if you could get him to Germany or something like that, somewhere where he's out of his comfort zone, to see how good he actually is. This is Berghuis I'm talking about here.
But they've both gone back to their home countries, which
isn't necessarily a good thing. I think we're asking a lot of these players, and if you're going to be the best player you can be, I think you need the Premier League it's not good because it's English. It's good because it's full of the best players, and we can only have the best. So whether they're going to continue their development, which is the phrase that the club like to use at the moment when they send people out on loan, is to be honest debatable. And I do think that it's worth running the rule over the success of these signings, because the amount that come in mean that by default some have got to go out, but there are a lot who are coming in and quickly going out. So you can draw your own conclusions.
Just a couple of things on Berghuis. One, I don't see how he would fit into Matt Sarri's formation. So I think that might have a lot to do with him going out on loan, because again, he'd either be played out of position and wouldn't be happy, or wouldn't get in the side at all. Secondly, do you think maybe he's gone back to Holland and that's his preferred choice because having just got into the Holland squad, it gives him a more sort of exposure to the Dutch, to the national side, and he's more likely to keep his place in what is a young and transitional Dutch squad at the moment. There's an opportunity there for him, and I think that might give him a better option of establishing himself in that squad.
Yeah, no, I understand why he'd want to do it, definitely. He'll be comfortable there. Obviously, it's his native, it's his homeland. He'll know the league, he'll know a lot of the players. And yeah, I think you're right, the international scene is something that he'll obviously want to establish himself. But from a Watford point of view, we have to be selfish and what do we want to carve out? What do we want to use this investment for? Player registrations cost a lot of money. The training facilities are getting better and better, and it's all to make better players. And it's not about them feeling comfortable, it's not about them understanding the lingo, it's about them being the best they can. So I totally agree that, and he probably deserves a break perhaps after the way it seems like he's been shunted around Watford a little bit. It would just be, and yeah, the other thing is the Eredivisie. It's not the Mickey Mouse League, is it? Feyenoord are one of the most recognisable names in Europe, and hopefully he'll perform well. I mean, but the main thing I regret about Berghuis is that we underused the Berghuis fleece logo. There was so much scope for fun and games with that. No, we never really got the Berghuis in Your Soul song going for covering They Might Be Giants, and we never even managed Berghuis in the middle of our street, really. That is the real regrets surrounding Steven Berghuis. But there's something there. They obviously think highly of him at the club. They wouldn't have paid the money to bring him in. We just have to get the best out of these players, and whether we're going about it the right way, I'm not entirely sure at the moment.
Perhaps it's just where we send the stroppy buggers, because if I remember rightly, the last Watford player to go to Feyenoord was David Connolly.
That's right. Yeah, I think he took himself off there, didn't he? In a bit of a huff.
I also wonder if it's the limit of the 25-man squad. You have to make more choices in the number of foreign players that we have, and that maybe if we had a larger squad, Almen wouldn't have gone, Steven wouldn't have gone.
But I remember when Crystal Palace pipped us to the promotion, I remember mercilessly mocking Ian Holloway. His squad's too big. He doesn't even know who he wants in his squad, and from an outside of it looks ridiculous that you're having to cull players, high calibre, expensive players, 2 weeks before. From an outsider, it looked ridiculous. Like I say, I absolutely tore into Palace. I thought, what a way to run a football club. You don't even know who you're going to be able to name in your squad. And obviously, with hindsight, it's a lot harder than that. So, sorry, Serene Holloway. That's the last time I'll ever say that, by the way. Oh, did you see that tweet, by the way, from the new Villa owner?
No.
So he deleted it straight away. But the new owner of Villa has sort of laid into Holloway the tweet because he said that they'll struggle. He said, "Oh, he's a washed-up manager, failed player, and an absolutely effing hopeless pundit. Don't ignore everything he says." So it sounds like there might be some fun to be had in the Championship with Villa.
A podcast made by Watford fans for Watford fans. From the Rookery end.
Some people, Mike, might think we're a bit weird spending all this extra time as Watford fans doing this podcast. Are they wrong?
Not entirely, but it's a big passion of ours, isn't it? It's something, and at least we're doing something productive with it, I reckon. That's what I'd tell the missus, anyway. And
the next bit, I've been out to talk to 3 other Watford fans that have done a little bit more. The first one is Olly Wicken, who I've been part of a project called Hornet Heaven with him, and it's out on iTunes. You can download it. It's a lovely thing, isn't it, Mike?
It is a lovely thing, and better than that, it's unique. I've never come across anything like it to do with football. There's been fiction, there's been stories and movies about football, but nothing quite as magical and evocative and atmospheric as this. I absolutely love it, and it sort of sounds get all misty-eyed, but it's great that Watford have got supporters who are willing to go out and put super effort into these things. They're not just things that have been dashed off. If you've listened or if you're about to listen, you'll know that these are lovingly crafted, lovingly thought out pieces of audio. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay, so I spoke to Ollie to find out where the idea originally came from.
It came from Tales from Vicarage 2. So I'd written a story in Volume 1, which was about Graham Taylor, revealing that he's God, the supreme being of the universe, in his autobiography, which handily I wrote for him. And the second story I wanted to write about the new ownership of the club. This was back in 2013 or so, and was writing about the Pozzos coming in, and I realised that a lot of fans were looking backwards and didn't want change, and there were some fans who were looking forwards and finding it very exciting, and I wanted to find a way of talking about looking in both directions, looking forward, looking back, and came up with the idea of Hornet Heaven, where you can go to any game ever throughout Watford's history, all the way back to 1881, and then for the rest of eternity, after you've died, you can keep going to every single game that Watford plays, so you never ever miss a game.
Well, I've listened to them all, and definitely it's a place that I want to go and visit.
So we've got a little clip that Colin Mace reads, which tells us about the idea itself, which is very handy.
He recognised immediately where he was. He saw rotting fences, crumbling garages, twisted brambles. He was standing on Occupation Road behind the newly built Sir Elton John stand. He swore, in confusion this time. What the hell was he doing at the stadium? He'd just died, hadn't he? He looked and listened. He guessed he was in the afterlife somehow, but it was odd. There was no half-time hubbub coming from inside the stadium, no half-arsed penalty shootout commentary. Nothing. He was alone, in a silent twilight. The place felt like a miserable grey limbo. Just what life must have felt like for Luton fans in the conference, he thought. This was no place to spend eternity, Frank decided. He needed to get back to the hospice somehow, so he could die after a Watford victory. He started to look for the way out. "No point hanging round here, mate," he heard a voice say. Frank turned. He saw a steward in a high-vis jacket. He reckoned he must be in hell, not limbo, if stewards were involved. "How do I get back to where I was?" Frank asked tersely. The steward rolled his eyes. "Here we go. First thing everyone asks." Frank snapped back. "Listen, pal. I died at the wrong moment, all right?" "Yep, that's what they all say. If this isn't the best of all possible places you could end up," the steward said. Frank glanced at the rusting corrugated iron, the cracked brickwork. It really didn't look like the best of all possible places. "But you said there's no point hanging round here," he said. "There isn't, mate," the steward said. "Not here. But if you walk to the top of the road..." Frank looked up the slope towards the junction with Vicarage Road. Throughout his time as a Watford fan, the Red Lion pub had always stood there. Now, instead, a golden glow was rising into the sky.
How did it become an audio storybook?
Well, I wrote them as written stories first of all, because I just write things in my spare time, and I'd shown them to a few people, as I always do, and surprisingly they don't tell me to clear off, and they asked me to write some more. So that's what I did, and then I've got a friend called Colin Mace, who I've known since primary school. He's an actor, he does voiceovers, he reads audiobooks for a living. And so I showed them to him, and he said, yeah, they'd work as audiobooks, can I record them please? So I thought, yeah, why not, let's do it. And it's gone from there.
This is series 1 is out, and that's 4 episodes. What particular things can we look out for in series 1?
In series 1, we start with an introductory piece where there's a man who dies during a game, and he dies with Watford 2-0 down. And he thinks that Hornet Heaven really isn't going to be bliss if Watford are 2-0 down in the manner in which they were during that particular game. And then there's a story that's set at the beginning of the Premier League season, which is about managing people's expectations and theft in Hornet Heaven. There's a third one, which is about Lloyd Doyley, actually, which was written to celebrate his time with us. And the residents of Hornet Heaven have a way of trying to keep him at the club. And then the fourth one is a retro piece. It's actually set in 1980, maybe for the slightly older listener. And there's a hooligan in Hornet Heaven.
How long do you sort of see the Hornets Heaven going on for? Apart from, well, we know it will go on forever and ever, but in terms of the audio readings, how far do you reckon it can go?
Well, we've got series 2 is all finished and ready to record. Stories for series 3 are lined up. We'll wait for events to happen, because what I like to do is try and fit the themes and the stories to things that are happening in the present day. So we'll see how Walter gets on at the beginning of the season and create some stories around that.
And what's the best way someone can listen to Hornets Heaven then?
You can subscribe to them on iTunes in the sort of podcast style, or you can go to www.hornetheaven.com and listen to them on the site there.
Yeah, really recommend downloading Hornets Heaven and just feel great about being a Watford fan, and that your future is most definitely a good one, even after death. We're getting on in years, Mike, and a photograph doesn't necessarily do us justice these days, but we've just been turned into a cartoon form.
I know, which makes us look a lot younger. And photos do us justice. There are such things as filters these days, which I use very carefully and very liberally these days. But yeah, we have been. That's probably one of the favourite things that's happened as a result of this podcast, is us being turned into little cartoon characters. Absolutely quite honoured, really. Yeah.
Alex Bennet, who's a Watford fan, he's done the Football Mishmash, which is the history of football in one image. He's done the Rugby Mishmash, which is the history of rugby, and Wrestling Mishmash. He's now started, over the last year, has been tackling the Watford Mishmash. And at the open day on Sunday, I got up to him again to find out more about the Watford Mishmash. Alex, we're looking at this amazing piece of art, and it's full.
Yes.
How long did it take you to fill it?
It took 11 months on and off. I'd guess around 1,200 hours.
How did you get all these ideas? Because I know I've been sport Watford for 30 years. I know a fair bit, let's say, but there's no way I can know all this.
Well, I'm similar to you. I mean, I've been going since 1987. It really came from, I met Richard Walker at the club, and he knew about my football one that I've done that's up in Family Stand. I sort of pushed him towards, why don't I do a Watford one? And he went, go for it. And so that's how it came about. And that was at the beginning of last season. Yeah, every spare moment I've had, I've just been plugging away doing this. But it's been great fun, and I've learned some really unbelievable things about the club that I had no idea about. I mean, the Gladys Prothero, which I know you've got in your 100 Moments. Yeah. Even when I read it on 100 Moments, I didn't know what that was. One of the friends of the guy that set it all up actually emailed me and explained it.
So what's on there for Gladys?
We've got a tannoy,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just saying many happy returns to Gladys Brotherwell. Yeah.
That's the good thing about it. Like you say, I've seen bits of this, like you put them up on Twitter and what have you.
Yeah.
But there's so many little moments. I reckon I could sit and watch this for. I mean, what's the aeroplane?
The aeroplane's made up.
Oh, thank God for that. I remember an aeroplane.
That's great. You picked the one thing I've made up. No, it was simply to get the Football Without Fans banner in because I couldn't find a space for it. But on the aeroplane, I've got the postcode of the club, so I thought, that'll do.
What's the oldest thing on it?
The oldest thing is here on the roof. We've got the founder of Watford with the clock tower that was in Cassio Road, and he's basically just looking over the whole scene, like, amazed that this has come about from his idea of a kickabout in Cassiobury Park.
And the newest moment?
The newest moment, unfortunately, we're talking of the semi-final defeat. Okay. We've got Pantilibon's karate kick, Dini's goal, his celebration, the same game. I mean, there's quite a lot from this season because it's fresh in my mind, and I've got Pep's goal against Arsenal. List goes on.
Yeah. We're on there. Jason, Mike, and I are on there, in the sort of not quite top, but on the left hand side, with our From the Wicken microphones.
I tried to hide you a bit more, but it didn't work.
But my favourite thing is you've got the Danny Graham vest on there as well.
Yes. Yeah, he did two vests, didn't he? He did McGinn and what was the other one?
Table tennis champion.
That's it. Yeah. And I think I've got them both in.
If I want to get hold of one of these, how can I get hold of this as a Watford fan?
At the moment, you can get them at roundheadillustration.com.
Out of all of them, what's your favourite?
The favourite moment for me is probably the Ogalo ice cream van, which I know Geordie Connor did some artwork on. I think a fan gave me the idea, and I ran with it. And what was good about it is that I kept adding the victims of the scoop throughout the season. So, I mean, there could even be 3 or 4 extra players in there. It's stuff like that that's made up. There aren't pictures of it. Like the ghost goal, I've actually done a ghost surrounding Stuart Atwell. Because I thought, if you don't know what that image is, let's just add to it a bit, and it will hopefully help you out a bit. Yeah,
because it's not always easy to what happened on the pitch doesn't look as entertaining in everything else.
I've tried to be as amusing as I can be, which is easier said than done. It's a bit of a homage to Terry Challis, really. I mean, he's in it. I mean, he's probably the guy that made me first started drawing, to be honest.
Okay. So fanzines are an amazing thing. I think we always, when you and I first started talking, we were sort of referencing fanzines and the feel of a fanzine when we started thinking about this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I think fanzines were a massively important supplement to me while I was going to football. I obviously liked the programme, see what the captain has to say and so on and so forth. But the fanzine, sort of back in the day when it was a printed thing, was the only real way, because it was pre-internet really when I started reading Clap Your Hands, Stamp Your Feet, done by some people that are now a bit closer to the club than they were back then. But yeah, it's a real great way of capturing the feel of what fans actually felt about the club without sort of message boards and stuff like that. Some of it was very, very intelligent, some of it was very jokey, and some of it was negative when it had to be. So they were really important. And yeah, I don't think we'd be sat here today if it wasn't for those guys. We've got a copy of Clap Your Hands, Stamp Your Feet in our 100 objects. But last season, a new Watford fanzine came on the market, Golden Pages, edited by David Anderson, and I caught up with David to find out about how last season went and what's going to be happening this season. Including a From the Rookery column, we can tell that already, for Golden Pages and Watford this year. Season 1 of Golden Pages, how'd it go?
It was good. I think we were still finding our feet, but we managed to get a little bit of a style. Added a few contributors who were regulars. We managed to get a lot of good content out, but maybe didn't quite get as many readers as we were hoping to because I think we still struggled to properly promote what we were doing, and there was a lot of people who wrote very good things which hopefully more people could read, so hopefully that's what will happen next season.
Yeah. But that's the thing, there's almost like there used to be a massive culture of fanzines, not just at Watford but across it, but it's almost like the rarity now.
Yeah, I think a lot of fanzines have had to fold or transform into digital fanzines. I think Newcastle have gone all digital, and a lot of places have gone to podcasts like yourself. And I think that's a great thing, but there's still an area for fanzines and a lot of set up recently. I'm checking Twitter, there's a lot of fanzine issue 1s that I'm seeing being promoted, and there's Stand as well, which is a great one, which is about general football, which everyone should check out if they haven't already checked it out. Maybe helps put forward a few ideas that you can't necessarily get from official sources, which could have ulterior motives, maybe. I don't know. Just
conspiracies. Yeah.
But we don't have to worry about keeping up good relationships with clubs, so we don't have to necessarily be scratching each other's back and stuff. We want to support the club and we want to say good things, but we don't have to worry if something's going wrong. So thankfully not much is going wrong at Watford at the moment, but I think Stand Against Modern Football is one that's really can lay into a few clubs in a good way and hopefully help make the game a better place. So,
constructively, I think that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah. Constructively, yeah, and that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to reflect upon what's happening at Watford, and maybe in a few years' time someone will pick it up that doesn't know about Watford and will be able to learn a few things, and from a fan's perspective what it's like at the moment and what's going on and what our feelings are, as well as just what happened.
Okay, favourite things that were in last year's fanzines?
Okay, I really enjoyed Adrian Pearl's pieces. We spoke about that earlier, and it was some really interesting analogies, such as Matej Vidra being Watford's rogue planet as the third planet, which got expelled from the solar system because just couldn't support having 3 big egos, and obviously Troy Deeney and Odion Igalo are as big egos as you're going to find around the place. And you can always make a fun feature out of that. And we have the good stuff, bad stuff, which is a bit of a laugh about what's good and bad at Watford at the moment. But also just being able to get in touch with more Watford FC writers who are maybe haven't done much before and have a good story to tell. So some that spoke about experiences they've had and they wanted to write about. And yeah, something really good to tell. So people from Australia who had to migrate away and somehow managed to get back for the playoff final, and it's fantastic to hear about stories from people that you might not have a chance to hear about.
Yeah. We're all Watford fans,
yeah.
But actually we've all got our individual stories about being a Watford fan, our own take on it, haven't we? On things that we've seen. Maybe our ages allow us to see a bit more than others. If so you want more fans involved, what's the best way? If someone wants to write an article or just get involved with Golden Pages, what's the best thing for them to do?
Well, the best thing is to get in touch as soon as possible, because although we have a deadline for contributions, if we get something in the day before our deadline, we have to have a massive reshuffle and try and fit stuff in. So as soon as you've got an idea, get in touch and say what your idea is, and then we can put it into the layout and we can allocate you a couple of pages, and we can try and make sure that you don't have too much overlap with what someone else is saying. So if you've got a really interesting point of view, maybe you've seen something that might be you've seen something that you think, you know what, I didn't know that about Watford, or maybe you've read something about Watford that you think other people should hear. Yeah, just get in touch with your idea, we'll have a chat about it, and you'll, I'm sure, come up with something fantastic.
How do I get in touch?
You can get in touch with us on Twitter at Watford Fanzine, by email, which is watfordfanzine@gmail.com. We've also got a website, which is goldenpagesfanzine.com.
You've got another season of fanzines to come. What's the one article you would like to write in this coming season?
The article I'd like to write is how Walter Mazzari became Claudio Ranieri Mark II. Troy Deeney was the next Jamie Vardy, and Buffal or Berghuis, or I don't care. I don't know.
You don't know.
Anyone was the next Riyad Mahrez, but whoever we sign in that position, yeah, that would be fantastic. It's never going to happen. I think I put in my good stuff, bad stuff in the last issue of last season. It was fantastic when Leicester did it. It'd be great if Watford could do it, but we'd probably do what we do every time and bottle it in the last minute. And it would probably be something to do with a last-minute goal by Nuiu or something like that, which has faltered us in the past. That would be ideal, though. Just another survival, another maybe good cup run, but just to do it without anything bad to say would be nice. Maybe.
A podcast by Watford fans for Watford fans. This is From the Rookery End.
Oh God, I've still got Dave on hold. Is he still there?
The thing about Almen is, I used to say, he doesn't run, he glides across the turf, and he just purrs. He's the engine room of Watford's midfield. He keeps things ticking over. He's the only player last season to score any goals for Watford from outside the box. That's 2. The only player in 3 seasons that Watford have had in the Premier League to score a direct free kick. 1. And it was completely ridiculous seeing wasted at right wing, left wing and right back last season. Here's a player who's technically proficient, who's calm, who's not a natural leader, but he just keeps the ball, he keeps possession, he keeps us ticking, keeps us going forward. He's just a class act. He's not a troublemaker. He's also integral to sort of cohesion of the squad because he speaks so many languages. I failed to see, watching Switzerland, how he didn't get back in their squad for the summer. And I just think it's a real shame. He's a class act on and off the pitch. Some of my favourite Watford watching memories, especially over the last 5 years, have been with Abdi in the team. Abdi scoring goals, Abdi passing the ball sublimely to Vidra and Dini and Forestieri and setting up Anigalo and setting up some lovely goals. And it's going to be a real shame and very difficult to see him play in another team's shirt next season. Do you know what I mean, John?
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Dave. Yeah, talk soon.
Yeah, pleasure, guys, as ever. I'll see you at the home of football. Come on, you on.
Yeah, bye. So he's still going about Almen Abdi half an hour later. I did like what Wolf's Mouth said in his blog piece. The links to, by the way, to all the people we've spoken to, all the fans we've spoken to, and any blog posts we've talked about are on the page on our FromTheRookEnd.com for this episode. He talked about, he wasn't the most skillful, he wasn't the most productive, he wasn't the most, in each one of those areas, Jason, Almen wasn't the best we've ever seen at Watford, but he sort of in many ways seemed to be.
Yeah, I've just gone to the bar, a rare occasion in itself. But whilst I was up there, a couple of the lads were talking about it, and one of the guys said, obviously still upset a couple of days after the sale, if not more. I'm trying to remember where I am. He finished his not rant, but his expression of unrequited love, let's say, and finished it with he's probably the best midfielder I've ever seen at Watford in my lifetime, and he's probably not the only one that feels that. There was quality there was class, there was skill, but there was work rate as well, the sort of player that we've traditionally loved at Watford.
Bigger than that as well was his sort of selfless approach to. I was quite surprised to see the number of games he played last year. He played virtually every Premier League game in some shape or form. Very few of them in his preferred position, so he didn't really have the impact that we'd have liked. And I think the thing that people will worry about is that we would never have seen what Almen Abdi could have done played in his preferred position. Like I said earlier, I'm glad that we decided he's not going to be able to play in his preferred position, so he's gone. We've been decisive. I really do like that. But the fact that he was willing to play those bit parts and do it so well, even though it didn't necessarily suit him, is... those sort of have we got enough of those sort of characters at the club? I think Pudel, he's gone. We must go on record as saying, I think, in terms of getting us out of the Championship, he was important. And we've talked about Charlton and how it took us a little while to warm up to Pozzo Watford. Pudel was one who seemed to get it straight away. He just got stuck in. He understood the Championship. He understood that it was going to be difficult. He understood that it was going to be blood and thunder. And he very, very rarely let Watford down. And if he did, it was a mistake. It wasn't through lack of effort. And he was a fantastic Championship player, and I think it would be remiss of us not to mention Daniel Pudel and to wish him good luck. He's been gone a season now, but it's official, and I think him and Abdi are very different to Fernando, who's at Sheffield Wednesday. He is someone who undoubtedly, I don't care what anyone says, didn't fulfil his potential at Watford Football Club. We spoke to Troy about him at length, and he said, look, he's one of the most skillful players I've ever seen. But there's a reason why he's not in the first team, and he said the same about Matti Vidra, by the way. These guys are amazing players. They're not. It's obvious to us, so it's obvious to the Pozzos, and it's obvious to whoever's the head coaches. There's a reason these guys aren't playing. But there's Almen Abdi and Daniel Pudel are very different to Forestieri in as much as they're selfless. JC, you've probably won Clubman of the Year a couple of times, or at least handed it out these days with a couple of jokes at the finger buffet. But these guys are important in a club context, and it sounds a bit cheesy to say it, but we've got Troy, who's a big impact in the dressing room. Aurelio Gomez is probably a bit of glue that binds them together. Knowing that you've got people like Almen Abdi and formerly Daniel Pudel and people like that. They're important in the club just to keep the whole thing together. I'm glad that Jace mentioned Hollebass having a great game at QPR. I've still got hopes for him. And he looks like he's coming around, but he's had a bit of a wobbly. We've questioned whether Berghuis has shown temperamentally to be a little bit fragile. So I think that's a big miss. And let's face it, when he was on form, Almen Abdi glided around and he could pick a pass, and it was kind of like the through ball thing on FIFA before they made it harder. He just made it look. He just knew what pass to play, and more often than not he could do it. So he was great. He was graceful. He gave Watford everything off the pitch as well. So, yeah, I understand why there's massive emotional attachment, and people are sad to see him go. I think there is a danger of overplaying it. We're on to bigger things. Not bigger things. That sounds harsh, but we're always looking to go forward.
You sound like a mate who'd been really good when we were single and fancy free. Who, when they did break up the girlfriend, they weren't like moaning on about her for too long, because that's my worry, that we're gonna. Maybe we need to get over the breakup with Almen. It was a beautiful thing when it happened, but there's bigger things. There's more fish in the sea.
I've heard that Bouffel's pretty sexy.
Well, Suarez on Sunday with the new kit. Maybe he's the new man. Jason?
No, you didn't see him play Saturday, mate.
Thank you very much for listening. Do subscribe on iTunes, and we'll be back again when the season kicks off. And hopefully we're going to be here weekly, unless life gets in the way, for the 7th season of From the Rookery End.
Check us out on social media, at Watford Podcast, on all those sites, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Get in touch. I've said it before, say it again. It's what makes it all worthwhile hearing from you guys. So let us know. Let us know if we're doing a good job. Let us know if we're doing a bad job. Let us know if you're over Almen. Let us know if you're not. We might be able to help. If you've got a poem about any of the players who seem to be disappearing on an hourly basis, get an ode in. That seems to be the way we deal with it at the moment. Just get in touch. Keep talking. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed.
Come on, you horns.